At 1 a.m., my parents said my brother was dying and needed $20,000. One question exposed the lie, and the police came for me. I never thought I'd be the kind of person who hangs up on their parents during an emergency. But at 1:07 a.m., when my phone started vibrating across my nightstand, something in my gut already knew this wasn't just about my brother. It was about money. For context, I'm a 29-year-old guy living in Austin, Texas. I moved out at 18, paid my own way through college, worked 2 jobs, built a small IT consulting business from scratch. Nothing flashy, just steady. My younger brother, Jason, is 25. Golden child, athlete in high school, mom's pride, dad's future CEO. He dropped out of community college after 1 semester and somehow that was finding his passion. My older sister, Emily, 32, is married with 2 kids and lives 10 minutes from our parents in suburban Dallas. She's the favorite daughter. The one who calls every Sunday. The one who posts family brunch photos. The one who still gets Christmas stockings at mom's house with her name embroidered in gold thread. Me, I'm the independent one. Which is code for, we don't need to treat you as well. So when my phone rang at 1 a.m. and I saw Mom on the screen, I answered because despite everything, they're still my parents. Her voice was shaking. Michael, oh my God, thank God you picked up. Jason's in the ER. My heart dropped. What happened? He was in an accident. We need $20,000. Right now. They won't operate without a deposit. That didn't make sense. I work with hospitals sometimes through tech contracts. In the US, especially in Texas, emergency rooms don't hold life-saving surgery hostage for upfront payment. It's literally illegal under EMTALA. Mom, I said carefully, what hospital? Silence. Dad's voice came on, sharp and impatient. It doesn't matter. We need the money. Can you wire it, or use Zelle? Whatever you can do. What hospital? I repeated. More silence. Michael, Mom whispered, please don't make this harder. That's when I asked the one question they refused to answer. What happened? Was he drunk? Total silence. Then Dad snapped, this isn't about that. So I asked the real question. Is this about gambling? Click. Dead air. I stared at the ceiling in the dark. Because Jason has a history. Sports betting apps, crypto, investments. He once borrowed $5,000 from our aunt and told her it was for car repairs. It was for a fantasy football league buy-in. 2 years ago, my parents took out a second mortgage to help him get back on his feet. I exhaled slowly. How much is it really? I asked. Dad's voice dropped lower. 20,000. If we don't pay tonight. For what? I pressed. What hospital? What doctor? What injury? Mom started crying, and that's when I understood. This wasn't about surgery. This was about debt, probably to someone who doesn't send polite reminder emails. Call Emily, I said. What? Dad barked. Call your favorite daughter. That's not fair. It's not fair that I'm only good enough when you need money. Mom sobbed louder. Michael, please, he's your brother. And he's your son, I replied. And apparently your financial black hole. Dad's voice went cold. If something happens to him because you refused to help. If something happens, I said evenly, it won't be because I didn't wire money to an unnamed hospital for an unnamed injury. Then I hung up. My hands were shaking. Not from guilt, from adrenaline. I didn't sleep. At 8:42 a.m., someone knocked on my apartment door. 3 hard knocks. I opened it to find 2 uniformed officers. Michael Turner. One asked, yes, we need to ask you a few questions about your brother, Jason Turner. And just like that, my stomach dropped. They asked if I'd spoken to him in the last 24 hours. I told them about the 1 a.m. call. They exchanged a look. Your parents reported you this morning, the second officer said carefully. They said you may have been involved in a financial dispute with your brother and that you refused to help him while he was in medical distress. I blinked. They called the police on me. They're concerned about his safety, the first officer said. Is he actually in the ER? Another look between them. No, sir, he's not. So I told them everything. The gambling history, the late-night demand for $20,000, the refusal to name a hospital, the second mortgage. The officers took notes. Then one of them said something that made my skin crawl. Your brother was picked up last night around 11:30 p.m. For what? Assault. Apparently, Jason had gotten into a fight outside a bar in downtown Dallas. According to witnesses, he'd been arguing with 2 men over money. It escalated. Someone ended up with a broken nose. Jason had a concussion and a fractured wrist. He wasn't in surgery. He was in police custody. And the $20,000. Likely bail, and maybe paying off whoever he owed. So they lied, I said quietly. We can't speak to their motives, the officer replied carefully. But your brother is currently being processed. They left after confirming I had no involvement. I closed the door and just stood there. My parents didn't just lie. They tried to use the police to pressure me. An hour later, my phone exploded. Missed calls, texts. Mom, how could you tell them about Jason's personal issues? Dad, you embarrassed this family. Emily, you couldn't just help. You know how Dad gets. That one stung. Because Emily didn't send a dime either. Turns out, she didn't have $20,000 liquid. But somehow I was the villain. I didn't respond. By noon, Jason himself called from jail. Bro, he said, voice hoarse, you really couldn't help. With what? I asked calmly. Your surgery. He was quiet. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. I was gonna pay you back. With what? Your winnings. He didn't answer. Instead, he said something that shifted everything. Dad told me you said to call Emily. You've always been jealous of her. I laughed. Jealous. Of what? Being emotionally manipulated into Sunday brunches. He sighed. You think you're better than us. No, I said softly. I think I learned to survive without you. He hung up. That weekend, I drove to Dallas anyway. Not to bail him out. To confront my parents face to face. Mom opened the door like I was a stranger. Dad didn't even stand up from his recliner. How could you involve the police? He demanded. I didn't, I said. You did. Mom folded her arms. You humiliated us. You tried to extort me. It wasn't extortion. You fabricated a medical emergency to demand $20,000 at 1 a.m. Silence. Dad finally stood. Family helps family. Family doesn't lie. We were desperate. You were enabling. That word landed heavy. Mom's eyes flashed. He's our son, and I'm not. That cracked something. Because they didn't answer. Instead, Dad said, if you can't support your brother, maybe don't bother coming around anymore. And there it was. Conditional love. I nodded slowly. Okay. Mom's face fell. Michael, no, I said gently. You don't get to choose him over me and still expect me to bankroll the damage. I left. 3 weeks later, Jason was out on bail. Not because of me, because my parents drained their retirement account. 2 months after that, their house went up for sale. Emily called me crying. Can't you just help a little? She begged. I'll help, I said. With what? With therapy referrals, financial advisors, addiction specialists. She was quiet. That's not what I meant. I know. 6 months later, Jason got arrested again. This time for wire fraud related to online betting scams. Federal charges. Even my parents couldn't spin that. Dad's health started declining from stress. Mom stopped posting on Facebook. And slowly, painfully, they began to understand something I'd known for years. Love without boundaries becomes destruction. Last Thanksgiving, I got a text from Mom. We're seeing a counselor. We should have listened to you. I stared at it for a long time. Then I replied, I'm glad. We're not healed. We're not perfect. But for the first time, I'm not the emergency ATM. I'm not the backup plan. I'm just their son. And if you're wondering whether I feel guilty, no, because the question they wouldn't answer at 1 a.m. wasn't about surgery. It was about accountability. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is hang up.